the Muslim community, people are getting into business and stuff like that.
Mohammed Hijab, most influential Muslim in the UK, who's here to shed light on why more and more entrepreneurs are turning to Islam. He's a believer in creating strong warrior men and feels strongly about fighting back against woke culture.
Whenever there's war, feminism becomes irrelevant, almost instantly, because we need to get things done now.
How was it debating Jordan Peterson?
He's not the same man that he used to be.
Nobody can tell you what that market's going to do. No one.
If you price something very low, people will say, there's something wrong with it.
There's no value to it.
One thing in Islam which is not allowed, clearly, is interest. It's not allowed to give it or receive it. People like Andrew Tate, I mean, he's recently become Muslim. On the day I went to see him, they froze my account.
Mohammed, welcome to the podcast. Pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. No, I like this entrance. I think I'm going to tell my wife and kids that they need to copious notes on how to do this.
Every time you come home.
Exactly, yeah.
Dinner's ready. Woohoo!
And you're the first guest we've had on that's actually taller than my dad. So,
oh, really? Yeah.
That's a prize
Yeah,
for
I'm
you.
not having it.
So we've interviewed a lot of people on this podcast, and we've noticed a shift towards Islam, especially among the entrepreneurial-minded people.
Yeah.
What do you think attracts them to the values of Islam?
I think nowadays we're kind of like in a very specific time in history. Like, there's the culture wars, and then within that there's the gender wars. I think that's what's going on. And Islam has a very strict stance on certain traditional issues, right? And I think a lot of people want the blunt truth on issues to do with gender and sexuality and all these kind of things, the family unit and these kind of things. And since Islam is a proselytizing religion, unlike, for example, Orthodox Judaism, which is a very similar religion in terms of what you'll find in laws and so on, it kind of appeals to that kind of subsection of society. So I do think that's part of the reason. And people like Andrew Tate, I mean, he's recently become Muslim. I've done a podcast with him. The reasons he cites are because of the very strong stances, very clear moral guidelines that Islam has to offer. A lot of other people talk about the fact that Islam talks about one God worthy of worship, and the central tenet of Islam is referred to as tawheed, or monotheism, to believe in one God worthy of worship. And then all these other things, for example, a lot of the biblical prophets, Abraham, Moses, Jesus even, they are in the Quran. So it's not disfamiliar. It's not unfamiliar for people that come from Judeo-Christian backgrounds to embrace Islam and to believe in it. So I think that's probably the reason why. But we'd have to maybe do a study on it and ask them. But Andrew Tate, these are the reasons he gave.
I mean, we had Elfie Best on one of our podcasts, and he's what I would typically describe as a London geezer sort of lad, ducker and diver, and probably the last person you would expect to take on Islam as a religion. But he spoke very well of it. I don't know if you've spoken to him, but what do you think would be the reason that would attract him?
I don't know much about him, to be completely honest with you, but Nietzsche, a very interesting philosopher. He was postmodern, like the father of postmodernism, and he was an atheist in his own right. And he actually had something to say about Islam, which I think is relevant to this discussion. And he was talking about Islam comparative to Christianity. Okay, and he was saying that he referred to Islam as a masculine religion. Okay, which is a very interesting kind of terminology. And he talked about the fact that Islam was a religion that kind of gave people a sense of masculinity, and he had some derogatory things to say about Christianity. In fact, one thing he talked about vis-a-vis Christianity is that he referred to as a slavish religion. If you think about Jesus Christ in Christianity, for example, he was crucified, he was resurrected. These are the central tenets of Christianity. And so from the perspective of Nietzsche, that's a losing battle. Like, if this was a story, he would have been a loser. This is a losing narrative, you see. In Islam, the narrative is not the same. We do have Jesus Christ, but he wasn't killed or crucified, so he was ascended. There is obviously the doctrine of ascension in Christianity as well. But if you look at the central figure of Islam, which is Muhammad, right, he went through a war, or a variety of wars, a series of wars, and at the end of it, he was victorious. And that's historically attested to. I mean, there's no controversy on that issue. And that's why Islam spread and so on. So Islam is a warrior religion in many ways, and it's unapologetically so. It's about expansion, it's about conquest and so on. And I think high testosterone men who want to win in life, they look at that and they say, well, what do I want to be? Do I want to be a winner? So what kind of virtues do I need? Bravery? Do I need, I don't like to use the word patriarchy because it has these connotations of exploitation, right? But we want to have a household where, there's a managerial hierarchy and the man is at the top of it, for example. Polygamy is obviously a big thing nowadays with the kind of red pill movement and so on and things like that as well. So I think these things combined have made Islam a very attractive proposition to a certain group of people. But I think if you look at the stats anyway, Islam was a religion people were converting to in the United Kingdom. And I think it was the number one religion people were converting to. Ironically, the data that we have says that women were actually converting to it more than men, which is kind of interesting now because a lot of men are coming to Islam. The reason why, we don't know exactly what the reasons are, but because there isn't exact reasoning. I've looked at some of like the British attitude surveys and stuff like that. But I think the theological tenets, like for example, if you look at the Trinity, the idea of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit in Christianity, the fact that Jesus is God and he's a man, compared to the fact that you've got one God worthy of worship. He's not a man, he's not a child, he's not all of those things. That Jesus is the Messiah in Islam, but he's not a God. That we don't believe that anyone with a date of birth can ever be a God.
Is Jesus a God or is he the Son of God?
So we don't. So Muslims don't believe he was the Son of God or God.
Okay.
We say that he was the Messiah, right? So he was the chosen person from God. He was a mighty messenger sent from God. That he was actually this. He was born from the Virgin Mary, but that he wasn't God himself incarnate.
No.
And so a lot of people that leave Christianity can't make sense of the Trinity. They say, why is it that you have the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and they are three co-equal, co-eternal? How could it be that you have the Father is God, the Son is God, and the Holy Spirit is God, but there's not three gods, but one God? How does it compute? And so because people have become disillusioned with some of the key theological tenets of Christianity, and Islam is a natural next step from Christianity. In fact, it doesn't negate it. Like the Quran doesn't negate biblical prophets, as we mentioned, doesn't negate Jesus, doesn't negate Mary. A lot of people just say, okay, well, in that case, let's take a look at the Quran. Let's see what it's talking about. Let's see what kind of message is putting forward. And a lot of them become Muslim.
You mentioned atheism. Atheism? That's a word, isn't it?
Yeah,
people that are atheists. As I understand it, and I could be wrong here, obviously, but do you have more respect for, say, someone who's a Christian than you do someone who's an atheist?
From a religious standpoint, of course. But from a religious standpoint, okay, you can have a Christian, you can have a Muslim guy who's a mass murderer. Do you know what I mean? Like, and we don't have respect for him from that angle. But from the theological angle, then Islam is a religion which actually demarcates theologically. You got Christians and Jews. They're in the right next door neighbor, if you like, to the Muslims. They have a separate category called Ahl Kitab. So, for example, a Muslim man can marry a Christian woman. And my father actually married a Irish Christian Catholic woman.
Do they have to convert after that?
They don't have to convert. But right. the opposite is not true. A Muslim woman cannot marry a Christian man, because the idea is that women are more likely to assimilate to the religion of the man. So why would we put ourselves in a disadvantage from that perspective? Do you know what I mean? So a Muslim man can marry a Christian and Jewish woman. We can eat the Jewish and Christian meat. So for example, and that's a very big deal in Islam, as is in Judaism. For example, we have halal meat. I'm not sure if you're aware. Jews have kosher meat. We can eat kosher meat. If a Christian person had slaughtered meat, we can eat that as well. In terms of the placement of Christian people in the Islamic imagination, I think it's certainly higher than obviously atheism or polytheism or something like that.
So why is it that you, again, it's only as I understand it, because I've been doing a bit of research,
sure.
As Islam seems to have a thing against atheists, when really they just don't believe in God. They don't believe there isn't one, or there is one. They just don't believe in it.
Or is atheism the belief there certainly isn't a God? Or is it that, because there's agnostic, right, as well, that you're not sure if there is or there isn't?
There's different compartmentalization. So there's individuals that, like some people, some scholars and philosophers, like they break down atheism into negative and positive. So a negative atheist is someone says, well, I don't have enough evidence to believe in God, therefore I don't know if he exists. And it's a very similar definition to agnosticism, where an agnostic would say, I don't know if there's a God or not. A positive atheist is someone who tries to make an active argument against the existence of God. So they say, well, because of, and it's usually the problem of evil, that's the most cited one. So because there's evil in the world, God can't exist, because how can the, for example, David Attenborough said something similar. He said, how could it be that God exists and you've got like worms coming out of the face of children in Africa or something like that? They think it's a negator. Of course, some atheists reject that, like William Hasker, he's a philosopher, he's an atheist, and he said that this is an intellectually bankrupt case. But the point is that atheism is divided into positive and negative kind of atheism. Islam's stance on it is as follows. I mean, there's a verse in the Quran that says, أَمْ خُلِقُوا مِنْ غَيْرِ شَيْءٍ أَمْ هُمُ الْخَالِقُونَ. Were they created from nothing, or were they themselves the creators of themselves? So in other words, the verse is trying to get you to look at the possibilities. What are the possibilities? Either the universe came from nothing, but we know that from nothing, nothing comes, because nothing is the absence of something. So either the universe came from nothing, and that's impossible, or the universe created itself, and that's also impossible, because you can't be there and not be there at the same time. You can't create yourself. It's like a mother giving birth to herself. It's logically impossible. So what's the alternative? The alternative is so obvious, painstakingly obvious, that the Quran doesn't even spell it out. It says, what are the alternatives to believing in an all-knowing and all-powerful God that everything depends upon in creation? The alternatives is what? Saying that something came from nothing. Is that something you're willing to take to the grave? Or the fact that the universe created itself, or that you created yourself? And so these are the, if you like, it's a logical disjuncture with exhaustive possibilities. If you look at all of the possibilities that can logically be ascertained, you will come to the conclusion that actually there must be something that gives power, or that is everything else depends upon, and it depends upon nothing. The independent one, we would call God. So it's not necessarily that we have anything against atheists per se. It's just the fact that we think that their position has no explanatory scope. Like the atheistic position cannot explain existence or purpose. And these are the two main things that for a human being to be happy and functional in the world, they need to be able to explain. Why am I here? Okay, why is there existence rather than non-existence? Why is there something rather than nothing? And then what is the purpose of life? These two questions, atheism doesn't have an answer to it. And so we would say, if you are an atheist, then you have to start thinking, what are the possibilities? What are the possibilities? How is it that I came here? How is it the universe came to be? Why is there something rather than nothing? And what's the purpose of life? If you ask yourself these two questions, we believe it will lead you to theism, basically.
Because, I mean, ultimately, there's a question beyond that, isn't there? It's like, where did God or the power come from to even create? So it's a never-ending, non-answerable question.
Yeah, but then that's a common objection, right? So someone say, well, if you're saying
I'm only playing devil's advocate,
right? So someone will say, well, where did God come from, right? And so we define God as the eternal, pre-eternal, post-eternal being, the independent one, which nothing depends upon nothing, and everything else depends on. And you need something like that in creation to explain creation or existence in the first place.
So that's what science would call dark matter, potentially.
Not really, because dark matter has to exist within a framework, a cosmological framework. Like black holes and all of that stuff has to exist within a closed circuit of the universe or something like that, right? But we're talking about something which everything depends upon and it depends upon nothing. It's pre-eternal. It's without beginning. Okay. The fact that we're saying it's without beginning, and we say where did it come from? It's tantamount to asking the question, how did the thing without no beginning begin? So we would say in the presupposition of the questioning is either a non-understanding of what we're talking about in the first place, something with no beginning, or a contradiction, which is even worse, which is that how does something with no beginning have a beginning? Well, we're saying it had no beginning. Do you see what I mean? And in fact, we say that it having no beginning is logically, it's a logically necessary step. So, for example, there are lots of arguments that theists have made, Muslims and Christians and Jews, in fact, aforetime, to prove this. And it's usually a discussion about infinity, that you can't have an infinite regress of things. So for example, if I were to say I'm going to drink this coffee now, but before I do so, I'm going to ask him for permission, and before he's going to ask you for permission, and let's consider the fact that there's an infinite amount of people in the world, would I ever drink this? So they would say, no, you wouldn't drink this. This is the infinite regress. There cannot be an infinite regress of causes, therefore. People say, there cannot be an infinite regress of causes, because if we're talking about, imagine this is the universe. For it to have a beginning, if there's an infinite regress of causes before me drinking this cup of coffee, then I'll never drink the cup of coffee. The same thing applies. So that you have to have something which has no beginning, that starts everything up. That's a logically inferred thing. If you don't have that, then the alternative is an infinite regress of causes. And if you have an infinite regress of causes, then it will be impossible to. It's the proposition that the inexhaustible has been exhausted.
So why wouldn't you stop that chain at like the Big Bang? Why can't that be the first thing that starts everything that came from nothing? Because if something has to come from nothing, then why can't it be that?
So I'm saying, like, for example, if we assume that something created something, which created something, which created something, and that went on infinitely, and the definition of an infinite thing is unbound, it's limitless. It doesn't have a beginning or end, it's infinite. If we keep going like that, and we say, well, now there's a universe, or now there's a Big Bang, or now there's whatever, then we're essentially saying the inexhaustible has been exhausted. So in other words, because infinity is inexhaustible, so if it had a beginning now, then the infinite regress of causes has been exhausted at the point of the Big Bang. We would say that that's a illogical proposition. So the point is that we would say, to avoid all contradiction, you have to come to a conclusion that there is a being or a thing that has no beginning and no end, which is independent, which everything depends upon, and it is dependent upon nothing, and that thing instantiates everything in the universe, and that thing we would call God.
Okay. If this God was so powerful and so all-knowing, then why would it care about us? Because we must seem so small compared to that.
Yeah, I mean, so the thing is you got to ask yourself the question: what is ascertainable about the universe? We know for a fact that the universe, for instance, has life. That's something the universe exists, we exist. I mean, these are things we can all agree on. The universe exists, we exist within the universe, and life exists within the universe. These are there. These are things which no one can. It's indubitable.
And do you believe that life exists elsewhere in the universe
Possibly.
as well?
I don't know. I think so. Yes, I think it's very possible.
Is that a thing the Quran or Islam thinks, or is that your personal thought?
Some scholars within Islam explicitly believe that, but it's kind of like,
it almost seems like impossible that it couldn't exist somewhere else.
I see what you mean. Yeah. But let's go back to the point, which is that, look, you've got the universe. Everyone agrees, atheist, theist, Christian, Jew, Muslim, everyone agrees there's a universe. Fine. Inside the universe, you have life. Okay, and life is the difference between biology and chemistry. Chemistry is non-life, biology is life. Biology is the study of living things. So, okay, you have living things within the universe. The universe is proportioned in a manner that allows life to exist. That is a fact. It's an indubitable fact. It is an indubitable, incontrovertible fact. The fact that you have life in the universe, and that the universe has the parameters of the universe, the laws of the universe, whatever you want, the laws of physics, whatever you want to call it, whatever label you want to put to it, has allowed life to exist. Now the question is, what's the best explanation for this? Now you've got one or two explanations. You could say that it came from randomness, literally like a lottery ticket or whatever it is, and you guys are into investments and all that, so you know the numbers.
I don't know if I'll put a lottery ticket down as an investment.
Anyway. Do you know what I mean? I don't think you'd be putting your money on that.
If it didn't come randomly, then we wouldn't be here to discuss the point anyway.
I mean, this is the anthropic principle, but I'm just saying, let's look at the exhaustive possibilities. So you've got randomness, right? You can say it came randomly, or you can say it came from an intellect or knowledge. All right, you can say it came necessarily, which doesn't really explain much. I mean, it came necessarily, but from whence or from where? So, okay, anyway, so you've got two real contenders, randomness and intelligence or knowledge. Randomness, I would claim, doesn't even exist. There's no such thing as randomness. Because what is randomness or chance? Chance is just our way of not understanding or putting a label to things we don't understand. Like someone will come to you and say, well, look, you got to where you're at your level, and your business acumen, whatever,
by chance,
through luck. They'll use the word luck
because they don't know how to do it.
Because they don't know how to do it. They don't understand that there was a process that was a very interesting or calculated, strategic process that you took, and that each business decision that you took was actually conscientious and it was strategic. It's like a chessboard. You are moving pieces. But for the ignoramus, they'll look at it and not see that there's a move that's being made at each level. And the same analogy can be applied to almost anything. Randomness is just our misunderstanding or non-understanding of something. Randomness doesn't exist. I mean, if I were to say, well, how can you empirically prove randomness? Can you put this abstract noun, randomness, under a microscope? We can see its dimensions or its substantive features. So randomness doesn't exist. So I say, what are we left with? We're left with proposition 1, which is that there is a knowledge. Either there is a knowledge or no knowledge. Either this universe came about as a result of a knowledge, a greater knowledge that put the constituents of the universe and the proportions of the universe such that life can exist within it, which is indubitable, that everyone agrees, or that it didn't happen. If it didn't happen, then we're talking about beyond lottery numbers. We're talking about something which I would actually postulate would be impossible. It's something that wouldn't happen. So when you combine the fact that you need something which is independent and it has knowledge, then that is our definition of God. What is God? God is the higher power or the independent one which has knowledge. That's really what God is. And so we say that if you have a God like that, to go to your question about why would he care about us or whatever, then we are explainable through this higher power. So the question is, we have free will. If we believe in free will, if we believe that we have free will, what decisions do we have to make which are most appropriate in forming a relationship with this higher power? The Islamic answer is you must submit to the will of the higher power. Just like everything in creation is doing something. Like, for example, the universe has laws. Yeah, there's the electromagnetic, constant, for example. Yeah, the gravitational constant. These are all constants. These things God has forced to do in a certain manner. Whereas we would say God has given human being the choice, because it's a sentient being with cognitive abilities.
What's the difference between choice and randomness then? Like, you have the choice to do anything you want in a way that could be random.
So choice is really defined as the ability to choose A over B. So there's at least two options, and then there is something that weighs A over B. So for example, I've got water in front of me and coffee. I can decide to drink this one, or I can decide to drink that one. So this is A and this is B. Whereas randomness is you have a series of variables, A, B, C, D, and what's being said is that A, B, and C, and D are being formed in that way by no decision maker. What we would say is that the specification of the universe, the proportionment of the universe, actually is indication that there is a sorting agent, an external sorting agent that's making decisions, just like we're making decisions. So the fact that things exist in the universe and that there are one way, not another, is actually evidence of the fact that something is making a decision as to what something should be, A over B. So to answer your question, choice is to decide A over B, for example, whereas randomness is the proposition that something is being sorted without an external sorter, which there is no evidence for that.
So do you believe that we do have choice to pick A over B, or is that a divine plan that's put upon us, and then all of those choices lead to the same conclusion?
We believe that a human being has a choice. Okay, and if it wasn't like that, then there would be an injustice, because then if God said, okay, well, every human being, I'm going to make the decision on their behalf and then put them into the hellfire or something afterwards, then that would be completely unjust, right? So the human being has a choice, but God allows him to make those choices. So the supreme agent is still God, but he's allowing human being to exercise his free will.
With the amount of power though we have over like the planet, if we're all to make the wrong choice, then surely the whole plan would be knocked off course. What would God do then, if everything's not going to plan?
I think that the power that we think we have over the planet is overstated. I mean, you saw this whole thing with the Titanic. I mean, they were mentioning that we have that area that they're trying to go underneath to find is less explored than outer space.
Yeah, we were talking about this the other day.
Do you know what I mean?
That nuts.
I mean, look, think of the following. If human beings all came together with all their expertise and all their knowledge aforetime and historically and contemporaneously, all came together, they would still yet be closer to knowing nothing than they would to knowing everything. That's the weakness of the human being. In fact, there's a verse in the Quran that says, لَإِنِ اجْتَمَعَتِ الْجِنُّ وَالْإِنسِ. If the human beings all came together to create a fly, they wouldn't be able to basically create a fly. Why? Because if they came together, the fly itself, I mean, if you look at if you look at a fly, if you look at a documentary, they're the most viewed documentaries in the world. If you look at IMDb, Earth and these kind of things, because human beings are fascinated with it. All the inventions that we draw inspiration from Mother Nature, if you like. which we have to personify because we can't explain why it's acting in a certain manner. But anyway, if you look at a fly, I mean, we haven't reached a stage where we can create anything from nothing. So
we are getting to the stage where we can create AI, which may then go on to be able to do these things that we can't do.
We would say the following. We would say that anything that human being creates, God takes credit for, because God creates the human being. Do you see what I mean? I mean, in the Quran says, هُوَ الَّذِي خَلَقَكُمْ وَمَا تَعْمَلُونَ. He's the one who created you and what you do. So all of you, your combined success, you know, in the business world or in whatever, God takes credit for that. Do you know what I mean? Because actually he created you. He created this marvelous creature that was able to go into the world of business and do these kind of things. So it's in the same way. It's like if I created a robot so fantastic that it was able to, if I created a car, you know, and that car was doing, you know, brilliant records or something, I would take credit for that. God created the human being, and so therefore God takes credit for all the things that human being does.
As a Muslim, do you have to believe in everything the Quran says?
Yes, yeah.
So there's no deviation whatsoever. And you use Arabic, I think, there, don't you?
Yeah.
Now, when I'm researching and I'm trying to look at Islam, one of the things that knocks me off course is when it starts going into Arabic.
Yeah.
Is it upon you to learn Arabic as a Muslim?
No, like you don't have to learn Arabic as a Muslim. I mean, all you need to know is basically there's a prayer that we make every day. We pray 5 times, as you know. Muslims have to pray 5 times a day and fast. There's 5 pillars of Islam. And there's a prayer that we say, which is in Arabic, one prayer. And in essence, you really have to just memorize that one. It's a very short prayer.
Yeah.
And it's telling you, I mean, it's a prayer between you and God where you're asking God to guide you. And that's really it. But apart from that, you don't have to learn the entire language.
Okay, because it sort of loses me a little bit.
Yeah.
But the way I understand it is it's a bit like sort of opera where, you know, I can't get into opera because I don't understand the words.
Yeah.
But the emotion is there.
Yeah.
And I think with Arabic, does it not bring out the emotion of the Quran?
It does. I mean, that's why, you know, if someone wants to get deeper into it, they would learn the Arabic language. Like anything else, it's, once again, to give the business analogy, if someone wants to really get into investments, I'm not into it as much as you guys are, right?
They're tuning to Mark Tilbury.
You have to watch Mark Tilbury, you know, you have to understand, you get the basics right, and then, do you know what I'm trying to say? And it is quite complicated, to be honest, for someone who is a beginner. Like, okay, do I have to really know about the stock exchange? Do I have to know about the price of gold? And do I have to know this and the currencies and all that stuff? It can become very overwhelming for someone who's not interested. But we would argue that the benefits that one would get from attaching themselves to the purpose of life is greater than the benefits one would get from monetary, benefits. Although both of them are good, you know.
So you say you've got to believe 100% in everything the Quran says.
Yeah.
Is that potentially a failing of Islam that someone might want to? Well, you know, I take 95% and I'm really with it, but I just can't go that extra 5% that you lose them, or what's the situation?
And a lot of people do that with Christianity, don't they? They pick and choose what they want from the book, and no one really follows it properly.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is that Islam doesn't want converts. It doesn't, do you know what I mean? Like, in the sense that it's not trying to sell itself to anybody. If someone wants to become Muslim, then they can become Muslim, and they will benefit from that. There were some people who came to the Prophet Muhammad and they said to him, we have become Muslim, and boasting in it. The Quran says, you know, يَمُنُّونَ عَلَيْكَ أَنْ أَسْلَمُوا. They come to you and boast that they have become Muslim. And then it says, بَلِ اللَّهُ يَمُنُّ عَلَيْكُمْ أَنْ هَدَاكُمْ لِلْإِيمَانِ. That actually God is the one who should be, you know, not boasting, but he's the one who should be incurring the favor upon you, that he brought you to guidance. Do you know what I mean? So in other words, it's not a sales program where we're getting commission for bringing people to Islam. Although obviously bringing people to Islam is something which we want to do because we believe that it's the right way to live. But it sells itself in that sense. And so it's not something where you can pick and choose. Because we say, like, look, God is the all-knowing one. He's the creator of the heavens and the earth. And the Quran says, أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقَ وَهُوَ اللَّطِيفُ الْخَبِيرُ. That does he not know what he created, and he is the all-subtle and all-aware. God, he knows what he created, right? And so if he knows what he created, he knows what laws to put down. So for example, if I'm having an argument with my wife on a marital issue, the way I arbitrate it is I say, well, let's go back to the constitution that we both believe in. Let's see, you know, you bring your case and I bring my case and see which one is correct. And so there is a rule system And no one is above, no one can break the long arm of the law when it comes to Islamic law. So it's really like that. You can't pick and choose. In fact, there's verses explicit in the Quran saying you cannot أَفَتُؤْمِنُونَ بِبَعْضِ الْكِتَابِ وَتَكْفُرُونَ بِبَعْضِ. You believe in parts of the book and disbelieve in other parts of the book. So it's one of those things. أُدْخُلُوا فِي السِّلْمِ كَافَةً. It's another verse in the Quran. Come into Islam or the religion wholeheartedly. It's one of those things that you have to come into fully. Do you know what I mean?
Let's say you sinned up until like you were 70 years old, and on your deathbed, maybe let's say 80 or 90, you convert to being a Muslim, Islam. Do you get forgiven for all those sins and then go on to the afterlife?
No matter how bad.
No matter how bad, yeah, that's right. We actually have a specific saying of the Prophet to that effect, which is narrated by Ibn Mas'ud in Bukhari, which is the most authoritative book of the Quran, which says that إِنَّ أَحَدَكُمْ لِيَعْمَلْ بِعَمَلِ أَهْلِ النَّارِ فيسبق عليه الكتاب فيعمل بعمل أهل الجنة فيدخلها. There's going to be someone that's going to be all their life doing sinful actions or the actions of the people of the hellfire, and then right before the person dies, something will change in his life and he'll do the actions of the people of heaven, and then they'll go into heaven. So in other words, it's really about how you die. You could be a great Muslim all your life, but then if you become a disbeliever, we believe, at the last minute, then you will be judged upon that.
What's the incentive to follow all these strict laws and guides in the book if you can get forgiven at the end of it, as long as you repent on all of those things?
The thing is, God is all aware of what the motivations and the incentives of human being is. So there is no trickery applied. You know, in fact, some people have tried to do this, but God actually calls that out. It says, you know, they try to deceive God, and God is the one who deceives them. So in other words, you can't play the system in that sense, because no one knows when they're going to die. I mean, we could die at any point. You know, the Quran states that death can come to you even if you're living in a fortified fortress. Nowadays, like I was looking at the Office of National Statistics, 500,000 people die on a yearly basis in this country. And I was looking at cancer research, and 1 out of 2 people die out of cancer in this country, apparently. I mean, it's a shocking statistic. So no matter who you are or where we are, we could die at any point. Doesn't matter. Like death doesn't discriminate on that ground. So the first thing is that we don't know when we're going to die, and as such, it's very important to have, we would say, that spiritual protection, so that if you do die, religion is like a log in the sea of the afterlife. It would keep you afloat so that you don't drown. We would say in a very severe manner.
So what is the afterlife? What happens when you die?
We believe that what happens when you die is you've got 2 things effectively. You've got the soul and the body. We believe in dualism, or at least some kind of dualism, where you have a soul and a body. And death is basically the separation of the soul from the body. And we believe this happens every night. So consider the following. You go to sleep. What happens when you go to sleep? You go to sleep and you lose your consciousness. We believe that death is just an extended version of that. But now, when instead of dreaming, you're in another realm. You're in a completely different realm. And to be honest with you, I think it is the most easy time in human history to believe in this. I mean, we're in the age of AI, as you mentioned, where, I don't know, what's that thing called that the Facebook are doing, Meta? Where you put literally virtual reality, you know, the kind of thing. You could put something and you can literally be somewhere else. So we will say, if it's so easy to believe from a technological perspective that you can be transported to another realm through cognitive processes or otherwise. I mean, the Neuralink that, what's his name, Elon Musk is talking about. Literally, you can manipulate your brain. So we would say, isn't it easy for God to do such a thing, the all-powerful one? That if you were to die, that you were to be resurrected in a manner, in a different realm, where you will see a different reality. You know, and that's what we believe in. And there's 2 major realities, heaven and hell. And we believe in those. Heaven is a real place and hell is a real place. So we have something called the Day of Judgment, where everyone is judged for their sins. Christians believe in the same thing, you know. And then after that, based on the judgment of the test, then someone goes to heaven or hell. And we believe that the world that we live in is a test. It's a testing grounds. The purpose of life is to be tested by God, whether you're going to do good or whether you're going to do bad. That's really as simple as it's a test.
So for these reasons, does death scare you?
To be honest, the only thing about death that scares me is that I won't do enough before it. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that, because, you know, I've got children and all this kind of thing. I want to leave enough behind for my children, for my community, for my family, that, okay, when I'm dead, that's all there. So, but that scares me about death. In terms of the actual death itself, I don't think it scares me as such because every day I think about it. Like every single day I have to think about death as part of my religion.
As you get older, you'll think about it even
more.
Is it on each and every Muslim to spread the word of Islam?
Not every single Muslim. At least if some of them are doing it, it doesn't have to be everyone.
Okay. Do you feel that perhaps sometimes it's pushed a little hard?
Yes, I think so. I think some people can become like sales. It's like
That's refreshing to hear that, actually.
Yeah,
it's the same with any religion really. Like, people in LA were screaming about Christ and stuff.
Yeah. I agree. Do you know, I used to be in sales, financial products and stuff like that back in the days myself.
The oversell of any product is too much.
It doesn't look good. It doesn't feel good. And the person on the other side feels like there's desperation. And the moment people feel there's desperation, it's like they feel like you're overcompensating for something, I think. But Islam is a thing that sells, like I said, it sells itself. I mean, it's not going to benefit me in any way if anyone becomes Muslim, except for the spiritual reward. But there's no material reward.
How does it make you feel when someone does?
I feel good. I feel like this person now is going to have a new life, and is going to have a structured life. Because you're talking about what's the incentive of, for example, one of the questions you asked was that what's the incentive of getting involved with something which has a rule system is. I think it actually promotes a tranquil state. A predictable, tranquil state a human being will have. I think it does promote that.
What would you say to someone that says religion is all about control of the population?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because why would you want a lack of the control? If you have a business, I mean, for example, you have a business, you have all these employees, and say, well, the laws and stipulations you put in place is to control the employees. So yeah, that's exactly right. Why would you want not to control them? What would you want to have? A state of anarchy? Or
I guess as a business owner, you would want to be in control, but most people don't like the feeling of being controlled.
Yeah, exactly. The Quran states that the human you're absolutely right. The human disposition is transgressive. They don't like authority. That's why we would say, don't give your authority. I mean, the Islamic message is as follows: don't give your authority to human beings. Give it to God, because He's the only one deserving of it. He's the all-knowing one. He's the all-powerful one. The Prophet said, "La ta'ata li makhluqin fi ma'siyati al-khaliq." That there is no obedience to the creation in the disobedience to the Creator. So the ultimate legislator is God. He's the only one that actually deserves that level of obedience. There's no human being that deserves that level of obedience. Of course, in Islam, we do believe in obedience. We believe the wife should be obedient to the husband, which is a very controversial thing to say in England, and that the children should be obedient to the parents. Obviously, within limits. We believe in, like, the parents are, the parental rights, husband's rights, wife rights, all that stuff. However, is
it their choice to be obedient though?
Yes, everything's a choice.
Okay, so that makes it slightly different. They're choosing to give the husband control in their best interest.
Yeah, everything is a choice. No one can force anyone to do anything, or manipulate them in a manner which is corrosive. And to be honest with you, it's just a managerial hierarchy. I mean, within the household, the husband has the final word. It's as simple as that. Because otherwise, who's going to have the final word? We're going to have consider the following. If you have two people, 50-50, and there's a decision to be made.
We say this all the time, but yeah, go on.
You have a decision to be made. How are we going to resolve the issue? It's like having two steering wheels to a car. There's going to be chaos, and it's going to be problematic. That's why even in the UK, you have first past the post system in voting and elections.
Yes.
To make sure there's a winner. But okay, you're sacrificing the democracy by doing that, because the most democratic thing is proportional representation. But they say, we don't care, we need stability.
Yeah, no decision will get made.
Exactly. So we need stability in government. We also need stability in households. That's what we would say.
Where did this journey start for you to share your message online like you do?
To be honest with you, it came quite naturally. I went to Speaker's Corner, which is a place in London. Yeah, I just started speaking with people, and then cameras started to come out, and then, it got interesting. And then we started doing more and more formal debates. But to be honest with you, I always had the idea that I'm going to be discussing these things with people on an academic level, to be honest with you, And so, yeah, I enjoy talking about purpose of life, because I feel like the thing which will give human being the most grounding and happiness is purpose. It's not anything else. Not to belittle anything else, because all these other things are important. I believe in money. I believe in it. I believe that you need to have money. Even Islam promotes that.
Isn't there a whole thing against like taking out debt?
Borrowing.
Yeah, borrowing.
Not borrowing, it's interest.
Okay, so if you were to buy a buy-to-let house and you pay interest on that and you have a mortgage, how could you go about having some kind of business?
Else, don't you? Not interest.
Yeah, what they do, they have the Islamic sector, they have this couple of banks here in the United Kingdom, like one called Ryan Bank and others, that offer mortgages which are Islamic, which are much higher than the banks, the normal banks, retail banks, and so on. But they've got a very unique structure where it's called aqdin fa aqd, where they've got 2 contracts for one. So they say, look, you're going to buy the house and then you're going to rent the house that you're buying. But if you add both of these payments together, it's more than a traditional mortgage. Do you see what I mean? So what they're trying to...
So you buy the house outright without a mortgage? Or
So no, what it is that you're forced to pay rent on it. So you've got 2 contracts that you're forced to be in.
Right.
One of them is a contract of rent and one of them is a contract of purchase. And both of them together, if you were to get a mortgage from a bank, it would be less.
So isn't that just an unfavourable cheat
Yes,
code?
it is. That's right. That's what they're trying to do. I mean, that's what the criticism of it is. But the idea is in Islam, it's that the interest is not allowed.
But surely that means, though, that the bank that you're going to get this from, they're making more money off it. So you can't take interest out, but then like your own people...
But you're allowed to make money. You're just not allowed to pay interest.
But it's still sort of unethical, though, to be skimming off the top so much of people that are supposed to be your brothers, no?
Yeah, just because of a technicality in the religion.
That's what some, I mean, Muslim scholars and others, they say that, exactly what you've said. They say this is nonsense. I mean, you're just changing the labels.
That's one thing that maybe you'd like to change in the Quran if you could.
No, that's not the Quran. It's this is just people that are creating financial products in the name of Islam. Because what they're trying to avoid is interest. Because one thing in Islam which is not allowed, clearly, is interest. It's not allowed to give it or receive it. So to give interest or receive interest is prohibited. It's actually one of the major sins of Islam.
Right.
So could you have a credit card and not pay interest at the end of the month? Because you don't necessarily, if you pay it on time, you don't pay interest.
That's a very technical question. I'll be honest, you'll find different responses by Muslim scholars. Some would allow it, some wouldn't. Majority actually wouldn't allow that.
Right, okay.
They say any contract which has even like a late payment fee or something like that would be unacceptable. Because the idea is that your interest is the idea of getting something for nothing. So they say that this is an exploitative thing in its core, therefore we don't accept it. Islam, though, is a free market religion. It is a free market religion. So you might have heard of Adam Smith's invisible hand. You know, Adam Smith is one of, if not the biggest, contributor to the Western economic system. And he wrote a book called The Wealth of Nations. Okay, and he talked about the invisible hand of the economy. He's the one who really talked about specialization, the law of comparative advantage, which Ricardo took and made it a bigger deal, and demand and supply, which the whole of business is based on demand and supply. I mean, how a price goes up and down is based on those 2 factors, demand and supply. And Islam, the Prophet went into a marketplace at one point, and he saw people, and they were saying, can you set the prices because this is unfavorable to us? This businessman here is trying to take our money. He said, no. He said, because God is the al-musa'ir. He's the one who sets the price. In other words, leave the market to do its thing. Because the most efficient thing for a market to do is to do its own thing. And then there were treatises that were written by Muslim scholars aforetime, like Al-Jahid and Ibn Khaldun. He actually wrote a very detailed demand and supply economic treatise. So in terms of, we believe in free market economics, we believe in business. In fact, there's a verse in the Quran that says, وَجَعَلْنَا بَعْضَكُمْ فَوْقَ بَعْضٍ دَرَجَاتٍ لِيَتَّخِذَ بَعْضُكُمْ بَعْضًا سِخْرِيًّا. That we've made some of you above others so that some of you can take others as employees. So this idea of, like, for example, the Marxist or communist idea that everyone should get the same money or that the government should own the means of production is actually anti-Islamic.
So do they believe that they're born above others, or that is something that comes from nurture?
No, we believe that God gives human beings blessings. So if
the ability to get there.
Yeah, he gives the human being the ability to get there. He endows human being with blessings.
So everyone has that blessing, and then it's whoever takes action on it.
Does that not go against free will, though? Because if they're born with that blessing, then they don't have the free will to make their own decisions to become the guy.
No, because God actually created a human being with the advantage or the ability to make those decisions. So for example, everyone has an opportunity to do business, okay?
But some are more advantaged than others.
Some are more advantaged and privileged than others. Like we are way more advantaged and privileged than, say, some people in sub-Saharan Africa or some people in other places in the world. It's very true, right? However, that disadvantage, we would say, is something that is part of the test of God. That God has put, and it's a test. It's not just, like for example, the Quran says, إِنَّمَا أَمْوَالُكُمْ وَأَوْلَادُكُمْ فِتْنَةً. That your wealth and your monies is not just a blessing, it's also a trial. Having money is a test, because now you have to know how to spend it. Now you're going to be responsible for that. Now you are more responsible than someone who doesn't have it, because if now you have a more, you have more of a social responsibility. I'm not saying you should be forced to do anything, although Islam has something called zakat, which is that 2.5% of the wealth of the individual must be taken as charity. But apart from that, it's the impetus is on the human being with wealth to give it out and to be charitable and to save people's lives and to see this kind of thing. So that is a test. If someone fails that test from the Islamic perspective, then they are more responsible than a pauper or a poor person or a disenfranchised individual who doesn't have that test to begin with.
So I've gone to Audi before and I've financed a car from what I perceive to be a Muslim employee. Is he sinning?
Is it interest?
Of course.
Yeah, then yes, he is.
And what's your opinion on that?
Well, he's sinning by selling the contract with interest on it.
Yeah, he is, yeah. According to the majority, if not all the scholars would say he's sinning, yes.
So what would his parents think about that? What do you think about that? And do you ever sin?
Yeah, I've sinned all the time. I mean, the thing is...
he's a serial sinner. There's one for the old TikTok.
No, the thing is, I mean, Islam is... The Prophet told us in a hadith, right? Hadith means a prophetic saying, something that the Prophet said, a word of wisdom that he said. He says, "Kullu bani Adam khata." Every human being is a sinner. And the best of the sinners are the ones who repent. So being a sinner doesn't disqualify you from being a Muslim. You can do the most heinous sins. You can kill somebody. I mean, obviously, we consider that to be one of the most heinous sins, but still be a Muslim. We consider homosexuality to be a sin, for example. But if someone were to practice it, they wouldn't disqualify them from being a Muslim, for example. You could do anything. I mean, pretty much anything, except for one thing, which is to declare that there's not one God worthy of worship, and Muhammad is the Prophet. It's called kufr and shirk, these two things, which is to associate partners with God or to reject the religion. These are the only two things that can actually take you out of Islam. Apart from that, whatever sins anybody has incurred, we believe that it can be forgiven.
Can somebody still revert if they say that before? So if I was to say right now, there is no God, absolutely no way, I do not believe it and I never will, but then next week I want to revert, I can.
Of course.
So it's only if I am already a Muslim, I can't say that.
If you're already a Muslim and you say that there's no God, then you leave Islam, basically.
But then can I come back?
You can come back, but some scholars are staunch to say you can't play a game with the religion. Keep coming in and out, keep in and out.
But God will know what he really means.
Yeah, exactly, right, yeah. I mean, effectively you can. But as I say, if it's a game that you're playing, then some scholars will be staunch about that and say,
I think what I've decided that what I believe is I don't really think about a God and I don't really know too much about it, but I do believe that everything is too perfect to not be something. Like the fact that you mentioned the flies and just the way that everything works in the way it does, it's too perfect.
Yeah, but I just think we wouldn't be sat here having this conversation if it wasn't so perfect.
Yeah, and that's Richard
true.
Dawkins. Richard Dawkins has this thing called the anthropic principle, right? And there's two. There's one called the weak anthropic principle and one that's called the strong anthropic principle. And he uses a very famous example. He says, look, imagine if somebody came and you were at a wall and someone was shooting you at a wall, right? And all the bullets went next to your body. No one bullet came to your body. And so how do you explain that? And Richard Dawkins says, well, the weak anthropic principle. Well, he wouldn't be alive to talk about it if that didn't happen. That's the argument. But where's the argument is the question. So how do you explain the fact that no bullet touched his body? That's what we're asking.
Randomness.
So then we revert back to it's chance, randomness. But the problem with the weak anthropic or the strong anthropic principle, both of those, is that it doesn't actually have any explanatory scope. It doesn't explain anything. So I'm asking, how is it that, for example, if you were to walk, if I was here, some people came in, some bad people, and they started shooting us at this wall, and all the bullets came next to our, body. Like there was literally a bullet for every inch next to my body, and there was no bullet on my body. I ask, how did that happen?
They've got a shit shot.
Yeah, but it would be
a very good one.
Very good.
Whatever. But these explanations.
Yeah.
So now we've gone into explanations. That's no longer what the anthropic principle
is. He was a stormtrooper because they can never hit anything.
Yeah, that's true.
These are all good explanations. They're fine explanations. But the anthropic principle is just saying, well, if he didn't, if he survived it, it's indication that it happened. So it must be the case. But that's not an explanation. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So how the anthropic principle is being attacked or has been attacked academically is that it doesn't actually provide an explanation for anything.
So you're worried about the next generation of young men?
I think, look, I mentioned this guy called Ibn Khaldun recently in the beginning of the podcast. He's a economist or sociologist, but he's one of the best of the Islamic world, right? And he had a theory. One of his main theories is that civilization goes through stages. I think they've put that into the kind of business world a little bit as well, which is that the first generation is the most eager and the most effective, and they've got the most motivation and the most efficient. The second generation is still quite good because the father is teaching the son, all this, the culture is still there. The third generation becomes weak, and by the fourth or fifth generation it becomes completely like degenerate or weak, and they rely too much on their power and their perceived sense of stability, which is not actually there anymore, because there's other competitors that want to take these guys out, basically, because they've had enough.
So does that cause the world to become weak and then strong men to rise again from that? I
think what it does is it destroys civilizations. And most people who have commented on this, like there's been books written, The Rise and Fall of Great Empire, Toynbee has spoken, Arnold J. Toynbee, others have spoken about this. I think the Western civilization has only been 30 years after the Cold War that's been around. Its degeneration has been exponential. Like for its time span, it's pretty ridiculous, actually. And I think, considering the fact that it has this much military power and spending and has actually quite good economic strength, it shouldn't be pound for pound where it's at right now. Like if you consider the Roman Empire, it was around for like thousands of years, because they had the culture of, sorry to say, masculinity and army and military and these kind of things. Now, I was recently watching an army video of America, United States of America, and they juxtaposed it with the Russian one. And the way the American one was like, there's a woman that she was a lesbian, something like that. She was like, I wanted to all my life, I wanted to be part of the army, and I don't know, she's part of the LGBT, and you see the flag in the background, and it was like, okay. And then you saw the Russian one, and these guys were jumping up and down and shooting, and it was all masculinity and stuff. And then you think to yourself,
Then you look at the UK, that the USA have just said that our army's a joke. So just come out with that. Ours is even worse.
It's the same idea. But what we're doing is, I think that the Western civilization is most likely to be defeated from within, by itself, from these ideologies. Like China is not a great threat to the military, I don't think. Economically it's a great threat, but I don't think it's a great threat to the military of the West. I think the greatest threat to the power of the West is the West itself. And this kind of ideology in itself, in a way, is eating within the civilizational structure. Because every civilization needs strong men, warriors. It needs warriors. Consider how America started. Consider the British Empire.
Yeah,
we wouldn't be where we're at if it wasn't for warriors. But you see what's happening in Ukraine, right? I mean, no one's talking about these things there. The women are going and the men are fighting, and it's like whenever there's war, feminism becomes irrelevant almost instantly. Because we need to get things done now. Forget about these dreams and myths that imaginary friends that we have and all that kind of nonsense, sorry to say.
So does all this stuff start happening because we haven't had a major war in the UK or in the USA, for example, and they've got nothing else to bicker about?
I think that the main idea is that when you become prosperous, you have free time. When you have free time and you're no longer under threat, and survivability is not the key, it's not the order of the day, then you become weak as an individual. Nowadays, like, we don't have the killer instinct as we used to, because we haven't had to fight as we had to in the past. We don't need to do that stuff.
But have we needed people to thrive in other areas, though, which has been done, such as economic growth? And, people aren't doing war, but they're building businesses like Amazon that have somewhat changed the world. Things are pretty easy now.
I think that's probably where the advantage is at the moment. But then you've got some of the tiger economies and like Japan and stuff that are starting to really catch up, to be honest with you. But that's where the advantage is. And China is catching up economically. Like GDP is catching up because of the sheer population sizes. Militarily, Russia's, and China together, it's not looking good for the West, actually.
Do you think the West is doomed then, or can we recover this?
The West has always had a good track record of recovery. Even Amr ibn al-As, one of the commanders of the Muslim army that were fighting the Roman Empire, he was praising the West and said one of the greatest attributes of Western people, or Roman people at the time, right, was the fact that after they get defeated, they're able to get back on their feet pretty quickly. And I think there is a culture of that. And I don't know what's going to happen, but I do think right now what we're seeing in Western civilization is a decay. It's kind of like a degeneration. I do think so. And I think one of the most clear contributing factors is this ideology that's being promoted in recent times, and the failure of the masculine project in the West.
We saw that very clearly when we visited Dubai recently. The difference is just crazy, even compared to the USA and here. It was so tidy, wasn't it? Everyone was respectful. On that note, have you ever thought about moving to Dubai?
Yeah, I mean, everyone's asking me about that. I think Dubai is, in many ways, is pretty Western place, you know. I think it's a West. People talk about Dubai. I think it's comparable with New York and Los Angeles and these kind of places, you know. Me personally, I wouldn't go and live there. Why? Because I'd like to be I like to be in rough places. I still live in an area which is considered to be rough.
You like the fear of knowing that you could get stabbed?
No, not just stabbed. I don't want to be too relaxed.
They say boxers always perform better when they're in the worst gym, and when they get all the money and then they're in the nice gyms with all the comforts, they don't perform as well.
He's firing shots at me for going to a country club right now.
What is that, like, for all of the Prophet Muhammad, he had the economic kind of the income coming in through war booty and money and all this kind of stuff, but he didn't necessarily live a very lavish lifestyle. And the reason why is because just keep yourself rough and ready. Keep yourself rough and ready. There's actually a hadith on this, or a saying, izhad fi dunya yuhibbuka an-nas, that actually leave off the world a little bit and people will love you. Because the thing is, when you start to get more and more money, people become much more envious. People become leeches. And you get two kinds of individuals, leeches and snakes. Okay, so if you don't know who to trust, you know, and these kind of things, and resentment, especially if you've come from a certain background and then you've just made it now, it's like, why him, not me, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, so keeping yourself rough and ready, I think, is very important. And so in terms of Dubai, I think when I go there, just for even a couple of days, I feel a bit like too relaxed there. I feel too relaxed there.
It was nice though.
Yeah, it's nice for a holiday, but it's too relaxing. I need to be rough. I need to see something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, one of the things I love about Islam is the sticking to your word part. Like, so you wouldn't lie to someone, or if you had a contract with someone,
that's right,
you'd stick to that. And I think it's a good idea, because if you're making a contract with someone that isn't a Muslim,
that's right,
then otherwise you're pushing them away, aren't you? That's
right. Yeah, there's a clear statement of the Prophet that al-Muslimuna ala shurutihim, Muslims are upon their conditions. So if you there's a verse in the Quran, ya ayyuhalladhina amanu awfu bil uqud, O you who believe, fulfill your contracts. As if you didn't have that, then you wouldn't have business. You couldn't have business. You couldn't do business deals with anyone, because no one will trust you, right? And really, the word of a man is the most important thing that he's got. You know. So
have you come across many snakes in that world?
Oh yeah, every day.
So you're a sinner.
No, I see a lot of snakes and I see a lot of leeches, and like I say, it's knowing how to deal with them. And I think people like you guys probably know how to deal with them pretty well, because you have to deal with them pretty often as well. Like people that just want to be your friend so that they can get monetary benefits, for example. It reminds me of a film called Coming to America. Have you seen?
Yeah.
It's with Eddie Murphy, and he pretended to be like, working in McDonald's or something like that.
And he's a prince from
he's
the Middle East.
He's got, from Africa, from I don't know what country it was, but he came down, and it's sometimes you just want genuine relationships, loyalty. Because for us, look, the thing that's going to give human being real happiness, according to a study that was done by Harvard, actually, it was a longitudinal study done from the 1970s to 1990s. Is human relationships. So the number one thing that was the thing that that predicted happy people, content people, was relationships. Your relationship with your family, relationship with your friends, we would add relationship with God. That's the number one thing. And so we want authentic relationships. We don't want relationships which are inauthentic. And so obviously Islam has this idea of brotherhood, sisterhood, camaraderie, unity, family. These things are the most important things, faith and family, basically.
So you make me feel quite lucky, because I would say that everyone I have in my life was there before I had a pot to piss in, apart from people that I meet business-wise. But I think obviously that's a little bit different and things are mutually beneficial. So I think that I worry less about that than people outside of business. So I think that, that makes me feel
That's
lucky.
Good. Yeah, you should, because it's that is. But look, if put it this way, this is going to sound quite cliche, right? But if someone said to you, look, you're going to lose your eyesight, but you have to give all of your money, all of your wealth that you've amassed, or you have to give that money to save your eyesight, I think we would give it, because eyesight is very important. Same thing with family. Bring any family member that you're close with and say, look, this person is going to be terminally ill if you don't give all of your funds to save their life. You'd give all your funds. And that shows you the extent to which you value those things. The things which are literally like, you know, they don't actually have a monetary tag attached to them. But we value them so much. And so family, children, a wife, kids, all that stuff is very important. And it's not being emphasized. And that's what we're seeing with the liberal ideology, the left-wing ideology. They want to break that down. Because if you don't have mother, father, son, daughter, if you can't say these words, if these words become controversial to say, then you've broken down the most important thing that makes a human being happy.
What is your opinion on divorce? Because if I understand correctly, your mum was a single parent.
That's right, yeah,
which is not so common in your religion, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a good thing, but it's allowed in our religion. Like in Catholicism, you're not allowed to get divorced, right? In Judaism, in Orthodox Judaism, a woman has to go and get something called a get, and the man has to grant it for her. But in Islam, a man or a woman can get divorced, because at the end of the day, if you're not happy with who you're with, you cannot be forced to be in a relationship like this. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, you try and make it work your best if you have children, because you don't want to put them in a disadvantageous position. And there's a very good book written recently called The Boy Crisis by Warren Farron, where he talks about the disadvantage of being in a single parent household. And there are so many disadvantages. You're more prone to delinquency, to criminality, to educational deficiencies, and so on. There's literally like a ton of data on that point. However, I mean, what I think of it is as something which is negative but allowable. And if human beings find themselves in a position where they cannot live, you have to weigh it up. I mean, my mum, as you say, she was a single mother, and I was still able to kind of get through life and stuff like that, go to university and do all the stuff that people want to do in society. But not everyone is that lucky, and not everyone is that blessed.
Do you think divorce has become too common though? Because it seems like people get married and it lasts like 8 years and then they're out, and they don't value, because maybe they're not Christian and they just get married anyway, and they don't value that relationship with God or anything like that.
I think so. I think the reason why is because, first and foremost, there's so much disincentive to get married in the first place now. Like this idea that, for example, if you're married to somebody, then they can get 50% of your whatever it is. In America, it's certainly like that. In the UK, it can be like that sometimes. You can get 50% of your assets if you get divorced. This is something un-Islamic. Like, we would never accept this, for example. Like, how could it be that, for example, 50% of my earnings go into a person who has not contributed to the business in that way?
So if you got divorced as a Muslim,
yes,
would you retain your wealth then?
Yes, of course.
really?
100%. There's no such thing as I'll give my wife or my husband half of this. Is nonsense. Yes. No, I mean, think about it. I mean, what is the logic? This makes no sense economically or otherwise. You know, I mean, how could it be?
So is it not a legal marriage then? Is it marriage within your religion? Do you sign all the legal paperwork? Because what if the ex-wife was to take you to court and then use the legal system to get half?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, right, I got married by the law, right? However, I will say this, is that, as Robert Greene says in his famous book, he says that the one who is willing to commit suicide has the initiative. For me personally, I don't care if, like, my wife is, me and my wife have children together. So if she takes my money, I don't care in a sense. I would say, like, whatever, take it. Because I don't care, like, in a sense, I'm willing to forego the money.
But also, she's probably helped you make it and supported you while you make it.
I mean,
so she does
from
play a role.
From that perspective, I don't care. Like, do you know what I mean? But I'm saying from the Islam perspective, you don't even need to sign the legal paperwork. It's a it's a 3-minute process to get married. You can get married very, very quickly. All you need to do is have 2 witnesses to give a dowry or a small gift to the lady, and then ijab and qabul, or she agrees, consent. And probably this is a good thing and obviously her father knows what's going on and so on. This is a good thing to happen in the day and age we live in now.
How does that? It's a stupid question, but like if you go and get car insurance or something, it says, "Are you single, married, this or that?" So if you are like, are you saying that you can deem yourself married through religion, but technically you're not legally married? So what do you tick in that box when you get in your car insurance?
Well, I think they're talking about legalities there. So we do whatever would get you the best rates.
So do most Muslims get legally married or not in the UK?
I don't know. That's a very good question. I think it's a close one. A lot of them do. A lot of them don't. It's probably 50-50.
And if they were legally married, right, and the ex-wife took the man to court and took half of what or tried to take half of what he had, would that be allowed by the religion, or would the religion step in?
The religion doesn't allow this, but the woman would not care. Some women would not care about what the religion has to say at that, especially if her husband's a high net guy. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So the point is obviously the best way to safeguard oneself is not to get married legally. If someone's really has achieved a lot and they don't want to, Or they can put like what Hakimi done, the Moroccan football player who plays for PSG. He put everything in his mum's name.
Yeah, he finessed it big time. That was crazy.
That's
he killed it.
Yeah. Or you can get like tangible assets and stuff like that, gold bars or something, and then if anything, anything happens, hide them. You'll put them somewhere. And there's a lot of ways to get around the system. You guys probably know more than I do. I mean, I should be asking you guys.
I think we're just avoiding getting married, aren't we, at the moment? Dad's already done it.
I'm there. Would you allow your children to go to school to learn about other religions?
Yeah, they do. I mean, I teach them about Christianity myself, about Judaism. I try and be fair. I honestly try and be fair. I say, this is what they believe.
I think that's great because that's what I believe. I actually believe religious education should be promoted more within schools. Not like a Christian school, you're going to learn Christian, that's what you're going to do today. I think you should learn about all religions and become tolerant of everyone.
Why is it so boring at school? Because
they make it boring.
But at school, God, it's like, I got RE today. Oh no.
Yeah, because generally RE was about, well, certainly for me, if I talk about what I learned, was about the Bible, and I'd already probably studied a fair bit of it or spoken about a bit of it, and it was pretty boring. But if I was taught about other, cultures and other religions, I would actually have found that interesting. I don't know if that's done now or not. I should look into it.
I think I learned about different religions.
I don't even remember.
Well, what if your kids...
Did you go to school? Sorry.
Went briefly.
I went for a bit.
What if your kids did turn out like they said, look, I want to be a Christian and this is what I believe in, but according to what you believe, they would be going to hell. What would you do?
I can't do anything. I mean, if they are of age...
Yeah.
Like now they're pubescent and they're.
So I've looked at all the religions. I agree with Christianity.
I'd debate them. I'd keep debating them. That's
every day.
Yeah. No, not every day. I mean, I'll debate them from time to time. That's what I'll do. I can't force somebody because the Quran is very clear about this. You cannot force somebody to be, lesta alayhim bi jabbar. You cannot force somebody. I mean, what am I going to hold their neck and say, you have to be a Muslim? Or no, it's not like that. I would debate them.
It's like them supporting a different football team, isn't it?
Yeah, no, much more severe than that.
It's like you are not supporting that football team.
It's much more severe than that. But yeah, no.
Yeah, I know. I'm joking.
That's what it would be. Though. It would be a matter of. I would make it my life's mission.
So you'd keep saying, "Come on, come up the arse."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What if someone grew up in a different culture and they were a Christian? They never heard about Islam, and they just went to hell because they never knew about the alternatives.
Yeah, so we don't believe that can happen in the sense that if someone dies a Christian and they didn't hear the alternative, we wouldn't say it would be. In fact, there's a verse in the Quran that says that these people, we were not going to punish people until they heard the message or they got a messenger. Okay. So until someone becomes accountable at the point where they've heard, okay, there's another religion here which talks about one God and this is the purpose of life, that's when they become accountable. Before that, if they died not knowing that stuff, they can die an atheist. We wouldn't say they would go to hellfire for that. Okay. Because that would be unfair.
And we talked about life somewhere else in the universe earlier on. Do you think that Islam would be present in those civilizations in the same way it is here? Would it have been created?
I don't know.
That's a push, isn't it? That is a push.
If it is the one true religion, then surely it should.
And the one creator.
Yeah, so what we say is that Islam has always taken different form.
Right.
So we believe the final messenger is Prophet Muhammad, right? He's the final messenger. But before Muhammad, we believe that there were other messengers, like Jesus was the messenger, or Abraham was the messenger. If it's in another place or another time, maybe some other human being or another life form would be the messenger. You know what I mean? So it wouldn't take the exact same form. Maybe they're not praying the way we're praying. Maybe they're praying an alien praying by jumping up and down or something like that.
So why could Christianity not be just another form of Islam?
We believe that Christianity came before Islam. So in a sense, we believe that what happened with Christianity is effectively it was distorted. That's the view. That the Bible was changed. It was changed. And then the gospel, or say the doctrines of the Trinity was inserted. And there is a clear historical development of the Trinity. For example, if you look at the Council of Nicaea 325 and then the Council of Constantinople 381, you see that the Holy Spirit wasn't a co-equal, co-eternal God until 381. So how could it be that he was Lord in 325 and God co-equal, co-eternal 381? So what happened, in that time? There was a development of the doctrine of the Trinity, for example. We would say that was because, a lot of historians would agree, the reason that happened is because they had to placate the people in the Roman Empire Because remember, these guys were pagans. They believed in Zeus and Hercules, and that's what we're talking about, right? And there's actually one guy, he's a church father called Justin Martyr. He said, just like you guys believe in Jupiter, in his book, he said, you believe in Jupiter as the sun, and we also have a son, father, son, Godhead. You know, the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Because if you consider mythology, Mithraism, Horus, and Isis, not the terrorist group, the gods, it's always father-son relationship in that Godhead, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So it's no coincidence we would say that the Trinity took the form, the pagan form that was there in the Roman Empire already. It took the same form, and that's what the Quran
because
actually
they
says.
were familiar with it, then it took that form.
Yeah, because
to attract them.
What happened is that in about 313, Constantine became a Christian, and he constituted Christianity as the religion of the Roman Empire. Now he's spreading a new religion in the Roman Empire. That's how Christianity spread in the first instance. Okay, fine. So when he became Christian, he started seeing that these guys are pagans, these guys are polytheists, these guys believe in Hercules and Zeus, this guy believes in Mithra, this guy's whatever. So how are we going to get them all to agree on the same religion? So we'll do a bit of give and take. We'll do a business deal. Do you know what I'm trying to say? We'll have some of your rituals, and then Christianity developed that way. That's why you'll find that the Bible doesn't actually speak about the Trinity in the same way as that people do, the Christians do. So there was a development of Christianity, which made Jesus God, the fully divine, the Holy Spirit fully divine, co-equal, co-eternal. That thing was developed. So we say that since there was corruption effectively of Christianity, Islam came to purify that and bring it back to what it originally was when Jesus was there. Because when Jesus came, we believe Jesus told people to worship God. It's in the Bible even. I by the finger of God cast out devils. I by the spirit of God cast out. I by my own self can do nothing. Jesus says, I by my own self can do nothing. The Father is greater than I, it says in the Bible, right? So we say that when Jesus was there, he was telling people to worship one God. He wasn't calling people to himself. We don't believe that. In fact, in the Gospel of John, I think it's in chapter 10, verse 30, right? Some people came and some Jews said that, you, Jesus, you're committing blasphemy. Yani, you're committing blasphemy. So he said, I'm not committing blasphemy. And he exonerated himself. He said, you call yourself God. He says, was it not mentioned in your Gospels that thee are gods? In other words, whenever we use this term God, it's used figuratively and metaphorically. I'm not calling myself God in that ultimate sense. The Jews at that time didn't kill him. If he was really claiming to be a God, as Christianity claims to be, say, then they should have killed him, because Jews wouldn't accept this behavior. Jews would say there's only one God. How could this man here, it's blasphemy to claim to be God? They didn't kill him. So the idea is that we believe that Christianity was changed to insert this doctrine of the divinity of Jesus and the divinity of the Holy Spirit, co-equal, co-eternal. This thing was changed in the Roman period, where there was a synthesis and a blend of different polytheistic religions, and Islam came to bring Christianity to what it originally was. That's the narrative.
So building on that, how was it debating Jordan Peterson?
I was okay. Jordan Peterson, I had 2 engagements with him, and to be honest with you, I feel like he's got a lot to offer in psychology. He's even got a lot to offer in other fields, but it was good that he came in a way that to ask questions and do this kind of things. I feel like he's branching out a bit too much now, in the sense that he's having strong opinions in areas where it's not his specialism and expertise. And that can be a very dangerous thing to do. You have to kind of be tentative with this kind of thing. You have to be cautious. And I do think that he's not the same man that he used to be, because of whatever reason it was.
How so? How do you think he's changed?
I think it's changed because I think there's a mental difference. Like his disposition is different. What I found fascinating about that discussion, the second one that I had with him in the mosque, which has now got like 5 million views or something on his channel, and I think it's the most commented on video on his channel. Like, I think it had so much engagement, right? That particular thing was, I said to him something quite interesting about what the Quran proposes, that if you believe in one God, that you will be tranquil and you'll be content and so on. He said, yeah, this is the case, because otherwise anxiety comes when your focus is multiplicitous. I found that very interesting. If you believe in more than one thing, your focus becomes multiplicitous, and that creates a sense of anxiety. And I think that was a key moment in the discussion I had with him, because him, from a psychological perspective, is almost affirming the fact that having a solid belief in one God worthy of worship can put you in a tranquil and peaceful state. And that's what I think is, because one video of Jordan Peterson, which I found really interesting, which is not as popular, but it's where he talks about happiness. And we find that happiness is mentioned in the, the Declaration of Independence and the documents of the United States of America and so on. Pursuit of happiness. And there's a film that was created called The Pursuit of Happiness.
With Will Smith.
Yeah. By Will Smith. And happiness ain't the goal, because, and he mentions this in the video, he says that if you're always in that elevated state, it wouldn't actually be a healthy disposition to be in. So the question is then, what state should we be in most often? The answer that Islam gives is that we should be in a tranquil state, in a content state, in a satisfied state. You're always content, you're always in peace. You can be happy from time to time, like you can have bouts of euphoria and ecstasy and all that kind of stuff from time to time. But if that's always the case, then it's like being manic, actually.
If you're tranquil and content, doesn't that go against the whole warrior mindset and being in, living in the area of London that you do, and making sure that you're pushing all the time?
I think that the best warrior are the one who learns to relax, because effectively the warrior is controlling his sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight response. You've got the autonomic nervous system divided into parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is fight or flight. It's the adrenaline. It's your pupils dilate, your palms become sweaty, dopamine, adrenaline is secreted, and so on. The best fighters are the ones who can relax the best. They can calm themselves down in situations. They can think properly. You know what I mean? So I think that being calm is the best thing you can be. Being calm and tranquil in any situation is the best thing. That you can never go wrong with that.
Yeah, because your brain shuts down, doesn't it? When you get all of this, dopamine, adrenaline.
Exactly. And
you can't think clearly.
Yeah, but if you can think clearly and you can calm yourself down in these situations, and you're calm in general, you're not always anxious, thinking about this or thinking about that, because I think that nowadays people become very, very. We're living in the age of anxiety. We are living in the age of anxiety, and I think the reason why is because of lack of meaning. Effectively, lack of meaning, lack of purpose that a human being doesn't have, and so having one purpose, which is to worship one God, we believe that that's going to bring someone into a state of calmness and peacefulness, or peace. Yeah.
Do you have any questions for us?
I think I want to ask you guys, because now, before I go, obviously, a lot of in the Muslim community, people are getting into business and stuff like that, and I've been watching a lot of Mark's videos actually, to be honest with you, because it's not. I've been quite hippie. Like I've been like a hippie when it comes to money and stuff like that. There's a hadith of the Prophet where he says there's talibani la yashbi'an, talibu mal wa talibu ilm. There are two people that never become satiated. Someone who's a pursuer of money and someone who's a pursuer of knowledge, right? And so I've been quite hippie with money, but now recently, after I've had some incidents where my bank's been frozen many times, I think they wanted to see what's going on with it. They keep freezing my accounts and stuff like that, issues like that. In fact, when I went to see Andrew Tate, on the day when I went to see him, they froze my account.
No way.
Yeah, honestly. Yeah, it's coincidence, yeah. But anyway, so I mean, it happened. So I started to think about, I need to invest. I need to start doing the business stuff.
But you can't earn interest.
Yeah, that's the caveat here. What would you do now? Like, a lot of Muslim people, I know, watch your content actually. I'm not sure if you realize that. But when I mentioned to a couple of my friends that I'm going to be seeing this individual called Mark Tilbury, right? And he's got this channel, and so I say, yeah, of course we know who he is and stuff like that, and we listen to his advice and all that kind of stuff. And so, obviously, with the caveat that we're not allowed to use interest. What would you? What are your words of advice?
Call it appreciation.
Well, that's the difficult thing, isn't it? Because would you see being paid a dividend as being paid interest?
No, dividends is different.
Well, that's okay then. Yeah. In which case that's a route to investment, right. And obviously if you look at an index fund that purely pays you dividends, then that could be the way to go about it. I've not looked into it enough to be able to give you a firm response on that. Yeah. Obviously you can invest in other businesses as well, because if you're being paid from a business from their profits, that's not interest, is
that's
it,
fine
either?
Yeah, that's good.
But then obviously if you invest in that business can't borrow to help his expansion and pay interest.
No, but if they do that, it's none of our business.
Oh really?
Oh, really?
Yeah, if they what the business does is not our business. So long as, like, for example, if I were to invest in a share in a top business or on the FTSE 100 or 250 or whatever, it would be legitimate to do that.
Okay.
Like I wouldn't have a problem, even if that business goes and does whatever borrowing it does.
What kind of return are you looking to get though?
I don't know.
Like an 8% per year S&P 500
Isn't
or
the 8%,
more?
I don't know. Let's because I saw a video of his where I like the breakdown. You were talking about what kind of risk appetite, and if you go for a low risk appetite, for example, you'd go for like gold, but it's safe. And then you went for the middle one, and then you went for the high one.
Yeah.
And the high one is like
Crypto.
You got crypto, yeah.
The problem with gold is it's more a store of value. So, you know, if that's worth £100 in value this year, it's going to be worth £100 in value next year.
Yeah.
So you're not really going to grow your money that massively. It's ultra safe.
It's good
Ultra safe.
it's good as a liquid. Like if you're holding blocks of gold, and if something happens to your bank account, you can just
Exactly.
sell
Yeah.
it.
Then you'd
Watches as
rather
well?
buy a watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the watches have gone down. Like recently, Rolex has gone down, hasn't
They've
it?
had a little bounce back up.
Have they?
It depends on the models. And
What?
everything.
Okay, because you're into watches, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not as into it as Kai, but I have got a few pieces.
Okay, so what do
AP.
you recommend?
Well, recently I bought this one, AP Blueface.
Okay.
And this has actually gone up by 12 grand since I bought
Really?
it. And so that's been a very good investment, even though I bought it technically when the market, it was on the downtrend, but it has bounced back like Dad said.
Mm-hmm.
So I just see it as a good way to invest and wear something and have it out and about. Obviously in safe areas.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
I wouldn't go around where you live. With
yeah.
it.
That's right. That's
But
right.
no, I do think it's definitely a good fun investment, and it's something.
Is it just AP that you've invested in? Or
I've got a Rolex as well.
Which one have you gone for?
I've gone for the Pepsi with a Jubilee.
The
strap.
GMT, yeah.
Yeah, so like Kai's there, he's got the Batman.
That's gone down recently, hasn't it?
I got it in the US though, so I got a good price in dollars.
How much did you pay for it?
$15,000, so that works out at about 12.4 grand at the time.
What year is it? Do you know?
It's a 2018 or 19.
So now that's going for like 9, right?
No,
Is it 9 or 10?
no, because you
struggle to find one for that.
That's way less.
But the thing is, we're
Is
not
it?
looking to sell them for a good 10 years.
Yeah,
I'm probably not
yeah.
going to sell mine. It's just there as a store of wealth.
Nico Leonard, I follow his guy who works at
Yeah,
Private
yeah.
Opinion yesterday, and they had one of these on a Jubilee bracelet, and they were selling it for $14,550.
Sterling?
Yeah,
Really? Yeah.
they're not 9. You probably can't even get it from the AD. For that.
You can. AD is probably about 9.
7,
Yeah.
maybe
But-
7
okay,
or
yeah,
9.
even
I don't know.
less.
They won't serve me, so I don't know.
If you built a relationship with an AD, then you can go in and buy loads of
Then you're
pieces.
printing.
Yeah, and then you don't necessarily have to sell them, but you know that the value's there.
Yeah.
You're making instant
If you can
profit.
get in an AD, you are printing money every time you
really?
buy. Yeah.
But is it with every model? Because like for example,
Pretty much.
the date Justin and the day date, I
Yeah.
think they don't really make that much.
the
do
day
they?
date
They get
will.
you in the door, though.
If you go in and buy a day date, it will probably cost you about 30. It will be 40 the second you leave. Definitely.
Are you sure? Yeah.
Yes. Not date just, but day dates. Day
Oh, yeah,
dates
day
are one
date,
of the
yeah.
most desirable. They're if you go in
But
there,
date
and ask for
just
a day
is like
date,
a
they'll
very
laugh at
cheap,
you.
like 8,000 something, right?
A date just, yes.
Yeah, it's like something like
Entry
that.
level.
That's the starter. Is it entry level? You said that this was entry
Yeah,
level.
whatever.
At the end of the day, you've got to enjoy your investments.
I think that's
And
important.
if you like buying watches because that's what you like, then
Yeah.
that's great. I have a watch. It happens to be a Rolex.
is that GMT
but
as well?
That's
got-
A Submariner.
Submariner. Okay.
But I like that. That's the one I like. So that's the one I've got. But to me, it's, you know, he likes it, don't you? You like watch investment. I'm just, well, okay, I like wearing one, but I'm not too bothered. I'd rather have it in other areas. So
I think to summarise, just to wrap up what I was saying, is I'm not an expert.
Yeah, sure.
I'm just an enthusiast.
you tell a lot of people
self-proclaimed.
you're an expert.
But I find it hard to believe that you could go in an AD and not print money every time you buy one, unless it is a date just or something two-tone or something like that. But if
With
you-
that won't make you a return.
no, you'll
Yeah.
probably lose money.
Lose money, yeah. Okay.
They
but-
tried to sell you a two-tone, didn't
Yeah,
they?
and I
When
wouldn't
you
buy
went in
it,
there,
yeah,
but you could start the relationship with the AD
But it
by
was,
buying
it was
the two-tone.
£11,500 for literally the worst two-tone date just you've ever seen. And I'm not that rich that I'm going to start spending 10 grand on watches I don't even like.
Do you know what's going up recently? I think I might be wrong, but Tudor. Tudor's starting to get like I think it's
well,
starting
that is
to compete.
Rolex, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, and I think it's starting to overtake Omega and stuff like that as well. The good thing about with Tudor is that I'm not getting any commission for this, right? But
Trying to
you
sell
can-
us a Tudor.
No. You can get like for people that like don't have that disposable income.
Yeah.
You can go to a Tudor shop in Westfield and pay like a monthly payment, no interest. That's quite interesting because then, you know, you might not have the
Rolex do that too, though.
Do they?
He was trying to do it to me because when I went in there to get a watch, obviously I wanted to go on for a couple pieces like this. I put myself down for a day and stuff like that.
You've got a relationship with the...
I could have done if I bought this watch that he offered me, because I did go in there. Funny enough, he was actually a fan of Mark.
Really?
So I told him that I worked for him and all of that. They offered me the one watch, but obviously it wasn't one that I was going to take. And then I was like, yeah, I don't really know. I sent a picture of it to my mate. He just started laughing at me. He said, it's so bad, you don't want that. And then I was like, oh yeah, not really sure if I'm interested. And like, even if I am, I'm going to need to like liquidate and get some money anyway.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh yeah, we can just finance it now. And then you can then liquidate and then just clear the finance if you want. And then you can just leave with it right now. And I was like, I'm more so trying to get away.
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah.
No, it's a bit of an addiction though, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like you get the gateway drug and then you start thinking, I need to get this one and that one and this one and that one.
But it's not going to make you the most returns. Any like investment stocks or watches, it's just a way to grow it. Well, I suppose watches a bit faster than stocks, but it's still quite slow. How about businesses? Have you got any of those?
Small ones, do you know what I mean? Like language school, online products and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean?
What about books?
Yeah, I've got books, but I get nothing from that. Effectively.
Right.
Everyone says that.
Yeah, I get it's nothing.
Well, it's the top of the funnel, isn't it? And it gets people into your businesses.
Yeah, no, it doesn't do anything. I'll be honest, because
Really?
with the royalties are so small and I actually did that on purpose because I wanted to get the books out for free, like almost for free. So they're printing out the material and stuff like that. So I'm not trying to make money from books. I don't think you can really.
Do you know what? Sometimes it's worth writing a book and putting a premium price on it just so you do make something from it. And also people see the value within that book.
I think you're right. Do you know, this is a good point because I realize that sometimes like if you price something very low, people will say, oh, there's something wrong with it. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like,
there's no value to it.
Yeah.
Oh, why would I want to read that? It was a £5.
Yeah.
You know, that's 30 quid, that book. That's got to be pretty decent. And I've bought it. I'm now going to read it. And not only that, I'm going to recommend it to everyone because I've paid 30 quid for that.
And I want everyone to know.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, if you invest in stocks and they go up in value, are you allowed to do that?
Yes, you can, yeah.
Yeah, so just open a stocks and shares ISA.
But the ISA issue is that they have an interest, don't they?
No.
Not if it's a stocks and shares
If it's a
ISA.
stocks and shares
Is
ISA. So
It's
you open
It's just a wrapper that you would hold the stocks within.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
fine,
It's tax
it's
free.
just tax free. So you can invest in index funds like the S&P 500 long term. You can put in a maximum of 20 grand a year, which is a substantial amount of money. If you max that out every single year and invest it in the S&P 500, historically you would do very, very well.
Really?
And you can sell it.
Have you guys tried that?
Yeah, we all do it. Yeah.
Oh, is it?
And you can sell it at any time. And bring the money out tax free. There's no retirement hitch or anything like that. You can't pull this out now. If you've got 60 grand in there, but it only cost you 30 and you want to pull that 60 out, you'll have it within 3 days, no tax, start filling it back up again, whatever you want to do, but you can only put 20 grand a year in because it's so powerful.
Really, yeah?
Yeah, and you can't backdate that 20 grand either.
Yeah.
So once you pulled that money
who'd
out.
you do it with? Like, where'd you guys do?
Vanguard. Do you mean the company?
Yeah.
Vanguard.
I do it with Trading 212, but it's just easier on my phone. And
it's always been profitable.
Historically.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Over the course of the last 20 years,
Nobody knows.
No one's ever lost any
Nobody
money.
can tell you what that market's going to do. No one. And anyone who does, they're trying to have you over.
Yeah.
So, but you can look at history like you can with anything, which you can help predict your future from.
Yeah,
and if you look at the historical data, it's very good.
Someone who invested in something like the S&P 500, if they invested for a long enough period of time of something like 20 years, I'm pretty sure if you look at the past data, there is not a single person that will have lost money if they invested for 20 years. If you invest for a shorter period of time, there's a chance because obviously 1 year it might lose 5%, the next year it might do 10, the next year it might do 5, and historically that will average out at 8 to 10% per year.
What about individual like stocks? And
much
stuff?
more risky. You can lose a lot more money. You can make a lot more money. I was a big fan of Tesla stock about a year or so ago, and I had, I think it was about 20 grand in Tesla stock alone. And then I had a tax bill come through for about 20 grand. But I think it was
we had some money in Tesla as
I
well.
think it was about 18. So I was like, right, my stocks haven't been up for ages. I've got this 18 grand tax bill. If I sell my stock now, that's going to make my tax bill a bit cheaper because I've made a bit of money on the stock. So fuck it, I'm going to do it. So I've sold the stock,
Yeah.
pulled the money out, paid the tax, which I didn't need to do because the tax wasn't due for 6 months. 5 days later, Tesla has gone through the roof.
We don't rub that
To
in.
the point where I would have made probably 50 or 60 grand maybe.
Really, yeah?
And it just paid my tax, didn't even need to pay it. And then now I would have this watch, probably have a day date as well, and a few other things that I don't have.
If you want to return to tranquility,
Yeah.
that's where the index funds work.
Yeah.
Okay. That's more less risk.
Because these things don't happen. You know, like with,
Yeah.
with Tesla, that could have gone down that much money.
Do you guys all invest in individual stocks?
A little bit, yeah.
Only a little bit,
Just for fun.
Here
okay.
and there.
Okay. Do you
I
want
put
to
most of my
disclose?
money.
but massively in index
Well, how
funds.
much?
No, I'm not how much.
Percentage.
What companies you do it with?
Yeah, I mean, I've got some tests. I have to put it up, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Oh, it's in the broker. You talking
No,
about
I
the
mean,
broker?
no, the individual
Okay,
companies.
Hang
yeah.
on, let me pull up my...
I haven't got mine
I'm
on
trying-
me,
you know,
but
I'm
most
lazy.
of his are the same as mine. Apart from I am in McDonald's quite heavy at
Really?
the moment.
I like McDonald's.
That's been brilliant,
Because it's a real estate company, isn't it?
brilliant.
Is it? I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
The way
they
they
own
make...
so much land.
Because essentially...
Oh, I've heard that actually.
They buy the land to build the place,
Mm.
and then they've now got a tenant that will pay over the odds because you have to rent it from me if you want a McDonald's. So they've got all this real estate and everyone's paying a premium. So they're just a massive empire of real estate that also makes a bit of money on burgers.
Mm-hmm.
Procter and Gamble.
Free trade is just so
Another big
slow.
one.
Yeah.
Look, I'm trying to load it up
Well,
at the
I'm
moment.
just giving you a few. Walmart,
Okay, yeah.
Amazon, not so good at the moment, but it has
Google,
been
Apple.
good.
I was in Disney, but then I had to pull all of my money out of there because I saw the way that it was going with Marvel at the moment.
I lost a couple grand on Meta, Just Eat.
Oh, here we go.
Do you guys ever invest in smaller companies, like medium?
No,
to-
like penny stocks and that.
Yeah.
No, not really. If I was
What?
going to invest in a penny stock, I'd rather find it outside the stock market and invest in your startup.
Like
You
an
have
angel
some kind of
investor.
influence in the business.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I've got my biggest ones are Tesla, Corsair, Meta.
What's Corsair doing now?
Not good. Adobe is doing very well because we use Adobe products all the time
Yeah,
with Premiere Pro and everything. So
Yeah.
I thought, why not
Buy
put
at the
some
shop
money?
you like. That's quite
Exactly.
a good tip.
Put some money into the stock if I buy the product. So that's how I choose.
What else do you guys recommend? I know I'm trying to squeeze everything I can.
Personally, if you've got digital products,
Yeah.
like I put most of my money back into the businesses and into advertising, marketing. If you put money into some kind of marketing machine, or you put it out on Facebook ads, or even used it on your personal brand, that's going to make you far more money than investing in the S&P 500 or stocks.
But I
Far
think
more.
I think one key takeaway though is that if you can afford to put 20 grand a year in an ISA, then do that.
And it doesn't have to be that. Up
But if-
to that.
okay, but if you
and
can.
at the end of the day, the way I look at it is it's a safety net. And I often have the discussion with my wife because she'll say, "Oh, when we're going to spend all that money that's stored up there?" I said, "Well, no intention to. It's a safety net. It'll be there." Possibly till the day I die. If I need it though, it's there, and it's a great thing to have ticking away in the background.
But like you said, like I don't think you should fill it up if you can use maybe 10 grand of it in the business. Then that's a much better investment than using 20.
It depends on your disposable income.
Yeah.
That if you can put 50
Yeah,
back
if it
into the
doesn't
business
affect
and
you-
20 into the ISA, then fair enough.
Sure.
Of course, it all depends on your individual circumstances. but
When
if
you guys
can
talk about
put
the
20
digital products, like for example, you've got a YouTube channel. You guys are all part of it, right? It's
Yeah,
all part
yeah.
of the. So how would you do that? Like effectively, what do you mean by like getting advertisements or what are you talking about?
Some kind of. So what digital products have you got at the moment? Did you say you had some?
We have we've got two, like we've got a language school, a small
Yeah.
language school, and we've got a one called critical content, which is basically we're teaching Arabic. We're talking about that, right? Online. Okay, so
is
that's
that like a
monthly
membership?
subscription? Yeah.
Okay, so you could run ads to promote that.
Okay.
And then obviously there's going to be a return. So whatever you put in that marketing box, like you put $1, you get $7 out. Why not just keep doing it until it makes sense? Of course, there's going to be a limit to the amount of advertising you can do, but that is a far better investment than putting 1,000 into the S&P 500 and getting an 8%.
So
And
I
you're
think
getting 80 quid or whatever.
I think you should do both.
Okay.
Put into the S&P 500 and also do what he says. But what I would probably do is also toy with ads because obviously it can work. But if you can make these products build into what you already do, or if they don't, make some new products that do. For example, let's say you've got a language school and it's how to speak Arabic. People look up to you, in Islam, and they want to be a Muslim like you or be able to speak like you and understand things in the way that you do. So your
That's
audience,
a great advertisement. You hear this, yeah?
so your audience, if they want to learn how to speak Arabic like you can, or they want to understand the Quran like you can, then you could have a product for that. And then every single video you make that gets 100,000 views, million views, 500,000 views, you mention it. Oh yeah, by the way, guys, I've got this thing. You can come and join me every week or whatever. Then you're getting all that free marketing by building that into your existing empire.
Okay.
Like James Sinclair.
And I think also what you should take from this is you've got three different views of different things coming together, which can be confusing. But what a mistake I think a lot of people do is they go, right, well, I'll do what he does, and that's it. Well, that doesn't all suit you, or take what I say, that doesn't all suit you. Take the bits that suit you, put those together because you're an individual, and make that work for you.
And just to clarify and build on that, I am the least wealthy person here. So just listen to me.
Really? I thought you were the most
listen
wealthy.
to me, the least.
No, I am.
I am probably the least.
Right, Dad, I think it's time for your famous question.
Yeah.
When is enough? Enough.
When we're in the grave. Do you know what I mean? When we're in the grave, because
You think?
there is a hadith, and I've been saying that recently, that nothing will fill the son of Adam's belly except for the grave. Like, you know, when is enough enough when we die? I think we're always going to have these appetites. We're always going to want more, and there's only going to be one thing that's going to close the deal, which is going to be death itself.
The end. And on that bombshell,
Thank you very much for
Thank
coming
you
on the
so much.
podcast.
Really
Thank you for
enjoyed
your
it.
advice as well, man. Honestly, it was actually very good advice, and it's good advice for the Muslim community as well. You know,
excellent.
you know, because we need people to become more competent in these things, including myself. I'm very incompetent with this kind of things.
You
know?
probably
That's
have to
why
watch it back because we've just bamboozled you.
No,
coming at
honestly,
you from
I
all
would-
But
angles.
that's
was
why
good.
we started the channel, is purely to help people, you know, level up.
Yes.
That's all it's about. It's all it's ever been about.
Strike it big.
Exactly.
Yeah, to strike it big, not level up.
Yeah.
That's right.
If you guys have enjoyed the episode, make sure to smash that thumbs up button for the YouTube algorithm, and we will see you next Wednesday with a brand new episode. So it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from all these guys. See you later.
That was awesome.
Thank you so much.
I really